Friends, what's happening? Welcome back. Joshua Staff, Varick Private Wealth here. Video number 2. Pretty excited about that, okay? I told you I was going to put more content out there, and I'm a man of my word. What can I say? So, week 2, this is basically the first content, the first substance, and I want you to know this is what we're going to be talking about, okay? Why won't you sell your stock? Why won't you sell your company's stock? Okay, executives, and then people who have a hard outsized position. But most of the executives, and I'll explain why in a little bit, but not necessarily like, hey, this is super risky. Like, come on, diversify. No, I want to talk about it through the lens of why you're doing what you're doing through behavior. Okay, there are mechanisms in place. There are cognitive and emotional biases that we're going to discuss because these are super important. I love behavior because it shapes everything that we do, not just through a lifetime investment program, but it actually carries forward into your everyday life. And understanding why we do the things that we do, it can affect better outcomes. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. So I have a confession before we even get going here. I've never met anyone who lost everything because they held too much company stock. Okay, not personally. I know it's happened. I've researched it. I read it like you have, the Enrons and the Lehman Brothers of the world, the long, slow, sad list of belly up companies. But what I'm here to tell you is that I've personally, in the real world, from all my years of sitting across from executives, the human beings who have accumulated real wealth by holding a concentrated position far outnumber the ones who were ruined by it by a bajillion. And that's a technical term for you. So I want to say that plainly up front because I'm going to spend some time explaining why so many smart and successful people actually hold on to too much of one stock. And I don't want it to sound like they're all just making a mistake, okay? Some of them built their entire financial lives around this decision. And it's not in itself necessarily just evidence of poor judgment. Okay, that's important to understand. But understanding what we hold and why we hold it is still worth doing because the reasons are rarely the ones that we say out loud or even the ones that we realize. So let's jump into it. The very first one, the first bias we're going to talk about, these cognitive and emotional biases, the endowment effect. The endowment effect is powerful. It's simple to understand. Whenever we have something, we freaking love it. Okay, it's ours. And if someone wants to buy it from us, we command a premium. Okay, we are going to charge somebody. We expect more to sell what we already have than we would be willing to pay to acquire something, the same thing that we do not have. Okay, and I think this is easily understood and seen in everyday life whenever you're looking at home buying. Okay. You're selling your home. You've been there for 25 years. Maybe you're moving into your Florida home or you're chasing your grandkids across the country or whatever it is, but you've been there for a while. You determine what your price is going to be. What you probably do is you add a little bit of maybe an emotional premium, if you will, into that sticker price. Then the buyers come along and they're like, all right, hey, we did our comps. This is reasonable. Like, here's our offer. And you're like, hell no, I'm not selling my house. This is my house for that. There's probably some endowment effect in there. Okay. Now, what I want you to do is take that house and switch it out for your company stock, okay? That company, you've been there for a while. You've been there for 15 years. You've built your reputation there. You've recruited half the building. That's your spot, okay? And that is more than just a stock symbol to you. That's your identity, and I totally get that. I want you to understand that that can be at play too. So whenever you're thinking about calling HR, putting in a liquidation order, hitting the mouse click, that's probably in the back of your mind, whispering to you, whether or not you realize it or not. So the endowment effect, very powerful. The second one I want to talk about, my personal favorite, because whenever you're sitting in meetings with folks like this, and with anyone close to their company, you can feel this one. It's kind of thick. It is sort of a familiarity that disguises itself as an edge. Okay, you sit in the meetings. You see the pipeline. You know which divisions are humming along, which ones are dragging butt 3 quarters before the market's ever going to figure it out. It feels like information. Sometimes it is information, but here's the thing. Proximity to a company is not the same thing as insights into the next 5 years of operations, okay? Executives, on average, they're no better than anybody at predicting what their company stock should be, okay? They just feel more certain while being wrong. And I don't mean that to sound confrontational, it's just true. And this is further evidence whenever you look at the timing around corporate buybacks. the people who have all the information on the roll, when they go back and they buy their stock back on the secondary market, they usually don't do it at the best time ever. Okay, so that's overconfidence. That's an important one, overconfidence. So the third one's kind of quiet, okay? And I think it's the most common one, doing nothing. That's the path of least resistance, and we love the path of least resistance, okay? Selling means a decision, right? It means a tax bill, a phone call, a talk with HR, a 10b5-1 plan review. Holding, it means none of that, okay? It just continues, right? That's inertia, okay? And inertia being so quiet, it can it doesn't announce itself necessarily as a choice, and that's why it's easy to mistake it as conviction. So the fourth one, I don't know if it's necessarily like a bias, and it's the hardest one to argue on why you won't sell. It's because, here's the truth, the darn thing has worked. The stock has worked, okay? It made you wealthy in the first place. The very success of the position becomes the argument of keeping it, and that seems pretty darn reasonable, probably to most people. Okay, why bet against the thing that made you wealthy in the first place? This is where the conversation sometimes can go a little sideways for me. It's that when you frame this decision, it can sometimes come off as a referendum on the company rather than what it actually is. And that's a question on how much of your future do you actually want riding on one single outcome? Okay, here's the way that I think about this stuff. A concentrated position isn't really high risk, high reward in the way that I think people imagine it. The reward side is bounded, all right, at least in my opinion. There's only so much room, or how much a single already large, rapidly growing company can continue to fly, right? How much can realistically run? You can only double your sales so much every year, okay? However, on the risk side, on the bad side of it, the worst case is that I don't think it's bounded in the same way, okay? A diversified portfolio, say 50, 60, 70 companies, and there's theory in there, you can see charts 30 and then 60, pretty much the risk is all gone, at least as far as idiosyncratic risk. But anyway, let's just say you have 60 companies. That portfolio, that's not going to zero. Okay, no matter what compliance says, but a single company, okay, no matter how freaking awesome it is, no matter how dominant, how long the run has been, it can, all right? And not always for reasons anyone could see coming a few years out. So I don't want any of this to seem like I'm trying to talk anyone out of believing in their own company, okay? Some of the wealthiest people that I know, they got that way because they believed early and they held on and they were right? But I want you to understand that believing in something and betting your entire future on it, those are two different things, okay? One is a conviction. The other one is basically just a bet, okay? So that's a pretty important point, I think, and that's what I was trying to make. There's a version of this conversation that I think is more nuanced than, hey, diversify everything immediately, right? And I think that's worth having at some point. When concentration is deliberate and it's sized and it's understood rather than just being basically an accident of inertia. So that's what I want you to take away from this. Understand this, know this for yourself. Do you have conviction or do you have an accident? Because they feel the exact same way until the day that they don't. All right. So that's it for this week. This is what I want you to do until next week. I want you to go learn something new. I want you to hug your loved ones and be grateful for what you got. We're all lucky to be here. Thanks for tuning in. Joshua Staff saying bye until next time. See ya.